I assume you can edit things when I sound stupid and be like, oh, let's not include that.
If you want me to, I can. But that's the good stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I always keep, anytime I do video projects, I just hit record and they're like, are you recording now? I'm like, I'm recording always.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, and at the end of the clip, we'll put all the great stuff.
Yeah. The 5 Elements of Letting Go, the podcast. Discussing mental health openly and freely, and learning tools and techniques to find peace. Do you have any questions before I begin?
I kind of tried to brainstorm and think, what would I say? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to kind of like verbal diarrhea.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I love. Because you're my third so far. And for me, it's always about, I want it as real as we can get.
Yeah.
Because the idea is, what do you do as a real person? Mm-hmm. When I was thinking of the concept of this, it was, is this going to be, originally I was just going to contact professionals all over the world to interview them. What do you do? What do you do for your patients? And I'm like, no, there's enough of that. I want to hear interesting people and their experiences with their own mental health and what they do.
You can find any, so you ask me.
No, I think you're fascinating. All right, let's start.
A dink. Sorry.
It's okay. Be a dink. It's going to be funny.
That's how I roll.
All right, welcome everyone to the 5 Elements Letting Go podcast. I'm going to introduce my guest today. This is Tim Korthuis.
Oh, that was so not there.
Do it for me. I was trying to figure it out today.
Korthuis.
Because it's funny, because I checked on the internet. And they pronounce it different.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
In Holland, it would be Korthuis.
Okay, that's the one I got. Yeah.
And then my parents go with Korthuis. A bunch of family went with Korthuis because people screwed it up. And then we asked my grandma when we started having kids, we're like, if you could fix it all, would choose a Korthuis? We're like, that's what we're doing.
Korthuis?
So
Korthuis?
I find the best way to explain it to children and students. Korthuis. Korthuis.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Whenever it's cool and unique, it's always neat.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Tim is the musical director at the Foothills Philharmonic. And are you also the men's chorus as well, or is that no longer? So
I stepped down from that role just this past season. We're trying to adjust the men's chorus and kind of reboot it. So I stepped back from that. I'm one of the founders of the Foothills Philharmonic Society. Yeah. And then I direct the Foothills Philharmonic Chorus and Chamber Chorus.
That's right. He's also a worship and arts pastor he was also a co-founder of the Okotoks Alliance Church. That's what I found out. Okay.
I was 6.
Yeah, of 6 people?
No, I was 6 years old when it...
Is that really? And they said that you're a co-founder?
Where is that written?
On their website.
Oh, actually, I think my boss wrote that. So yeah, no, yeah.
Okay,
well, my parents helped found the church when I was a kid. So then,
I guess you fit the bill there.
Yes.
He has a master's degree in conducting.
I do. Super nerd.
That's pretty wild. And I would say he's a community leader.
Thanks.
One thing I find very interesting. Tim and I are friends on Facebook, and out of all the religious people I know, Tim is the most balanced and grounded person of faith I've ever met.
It depends on who you talk to. They might be like, that Tim is one unbalanced person of faith. I'm like, I don't care. I just do my best to follow Jesus and be like, all right, what would you do? Let's try to do that.
Yeah. And I think it's, especially when there's comments where people are, and again, our world has moved towards this incredibly divided and to these either extremes. And the problem I have with that is I don't think that's where progress happens.
No. Yeah,
and, I think, there's those that want everything changed immediately, and then there's those that want everything to go back the way it was 200-300 years ago, whatever they think was the perfect time.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way it is. Progress is in the middle. And I've seen several comments from you over the years where people are getting a little out of hand, and you just have this calming, balanced, loving response.
Thanks.
To kind of pull people back to, hey, this is the foundation. This is what really matters.
Yeah. Getting bent out of shape about all the extremes. I'm like, no, what you're saying, like, I hear you. That's actually not the bigger issue here. The bigger issue is, just a conversation today with someone over race, and they're like, white and black lives matter. I'm like, totally, 100%, all lives matter. But right now, I'll get a little political on you.
Yeah, we love that. Go ahead.
I'm like, but right now, our black brothers and sisters don't. The law does not treat them like they matter. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, everyone matters. So let's do our best to make sure that everyone knows they matter, right? And it's just kind of, I'm with you, but work with me here so we can get them to the same point, so we can all say that together.
Well, and I think too, like, again, I was raised very staunch, religious Mormon. I've left that behind me now, but I know the stuff, right? And one thing that always surprises me by that, in comments like that from people who are faithful, is, Jesus left the 99 to recover the one.
Yeah.
And at this moment, Black lives are that one, and other, groups.
And indigenous.
Yes, totally. Exactly. And, if we are true followers of, Christ, that example that he set, then you're going to be that person that's like, no, this is what's needed right now.
Yeah, these ones are doing okay. One guy said, I forget his comment about being white or something. I'm like, I know, like, Irish people, they were persecuted, and sometimes they still get people yell at them or whatever, but we're not talking the same thing anymore. They're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I think we moved past that now. And it's currently, this is our those that are in need of support and love.
Exactly.
And help.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into lots of things tonight. Anything that comes out, anything you want to share, you go right ahead. The main purpose of these discussions that I've been carrying on with people is, I want to know what real people feel about mental health. We need to talk about it more. We need to be brave enough to talk about ourselves and our concerns, because I think those that are struggling and those that are having difficulty with their mental health, they see the Instagram world where everything's perfect. There we go. I forgot to put that on.
I thought that was one of those things, but I wasn't going to say that.
When is he going to turn on the light? Hey, everybody. So, in this instance, these discussions I'm encouraging are a way to hear how, people that I respect and I think are, people that have interesting histories, but also are handling their mental health in very, I think, great ways. And I think you're a great balanced person. I know within your experience and your role, you help a lot of people. But also I think I wanted to hear from someone who, from a religious perspective, but also from a musical perspective, how you use those tools to help you find, peace within your own mental health. So if I were to ask you, what is your current view of mental health right now in the world, and where it is? What would you say?
Big. That's a big statement. Probably the first thing that comes to mind is really, really recognizing that mental health is the same as any other injury or any other body issue. Sometimes you run into people who say, shake it off. I'm like, I can't shake off a broken leg. And mental health, as you say, kind of spiritual things, there are different aspects of mental health. And a lot of people say, it's all spiritual, or it's all emotional, or it's all biochemical. Yes, it is all those things, but depending on what you're dealing with, I know for myself, for me to deal with any of the emotional or the spiritual stuff, I need to get the chemical right, because my brain is not, the chemicals aren't working right. So I look at that and I'm very open with my kids, because if they wrestle with it, I want them to know that I'm like, it's not a shame. And I think as a world, we're coming out of that, which is really good. removing the shame element and saying, oh, you know what, if we can get you some medicine to help you help you kind of get on the right track. Going back to the spiritual thing, a good friend of mine, associate pastor at the church, preached a really great sermon on depression years ago, and he talked about those things, that sometimes we need the chemical. He kind of said that these different layers of depression are like broken lenses in the way you can view and interact with the world. And sometimes even to deal with the emotional or the spiritual, you need to deal with the chemical first, because you can't even see what you need to deal with. You can't even see what's going on in your head because things are just spiraling so much. Even for example, from a mental health perspective, I was freaking out even coming down here, because I'm just like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? I'm going to sound like an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. And then my heart starts pounding. I'm having this major anxiety. And then, my son says, hey, do you want to play Minecraft with me? And my insides say, no, you should hide and cry. But one of my kind of coping things is I'd said years ago to myself, I'm like, never let your mental health get in the way of being with your kids. And just like by saying yes as much as I can to them, it just interrupts that spiraling train of thought. I regularly take medicine I take Cipralex, which I'm not a spokesperson for them, but it works great for me.
Yeah.
So I take that regularly, and that my wife will be the biggest advocate of that as well. That it allowed me then to view the rest of my emotions in a constructive way, that I could actually step back instead of going, everything's a disaster, you're a disaster. Going from several times a day, going, when you're in the car, you're like, what would make this world better if you drove this car off the edge of the road, and going from thinking that several times a day to now being able to go when that thought comes up and be like, that makes no sense. You know what? Here's a couple things that you should remember that are good about you.
Yeah.
And remembering that, your wife loves you and your kids love you, and here are a couple of good things about your life. And it's not that. Some people say, medicine, it's, you do that so you can feel happy all the time. I'm like, no, if you got that pill, let me know, because I've
done that one, but you don't want to do it all the time.
True enough. But it's just something that allows me to view what's going on in myself clearer, to be able to address my emotional issues, to be able to address, anger and anxiety. From a music perspective, like I got this master's degree in choir, but I hadn't fully realized I had clinical depression until after I finished that master's degree.
Wow. So
I went through my bachelor's degree in classical and jazz piano and my master's degree in conducting. And I would sit there in the, kind of grad student's office before rehearsal, and I'm just shaking, and I'm going, why are you dreading this? Why are you like freaking out? And I'm just like, I should run and I should jump off the top of this building, because that would make the most sense right now, just to end everything. I'm like, but you're going into a room to do something you love.
Yeah.
well, why can you? And all I could think of was just, how much I hated my life. And it's so illogical. It's so hard to talk about, because it's something I love. And then I would step foot into the rehearsal, and then boom, it's like a switch. My brain would go, oh, right, we're okay. But I would have to keep just those steps to remind myself and be like, it's hard to say pre-medicine, because nothing really helped, at least not for me. I tried to deal with it spiritually, and I have wonderful spiritual like elders at our church and stuff like that who would pray with me, but I had to work with it over time to realize, okay, it's not a spiritual thing. Why? Because I 100% believe that God loves me and that He's hearing my prayers. So, if this isn't getting fixed, then it's not that thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's an emotional thing. I'm like, okay, I can see it's an emotional thing, but I don't know how the hell I'm supposed to fix it from there and go, just be happier, be better.
Oh.
So I had a friend, people are like, oh, you should exercise. I'm like, that sounds great too, but I know I won't. Like, I just, like you're talking motivations. I'm like, I can't even, I'm not a person who is just like laying in bed for hours, but I know I can't motivate myself to go work out to get over this. I need to stop this churning of self-loathing and hatred and all this type of stuff. And I needed something to stop that. And then finally, I listened to the advice of my friends who had said it for many years. They're like, why don't you try some medication? I'm like, well, fine. I went to the doctor and he started me on something, and all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, is this how like the rest of the world thinks?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't happiness, it was clarity. It was being able to see beyond my self-loathing, beyond my anxiety and panic, that, I can actually address that. And then, we kind of mess with the levels, just kind of going, he's like, how would you find your depression at this point? I'm like, it's still pretty debilitating. I mean, we brought it up, certain levels. And my doctor was really great, Richard Ansel. Woo, awesome. And then even now, though, I'm eating, because of the clarity that brought, I'm eating a little bit better. I'm trying to deal with diet. I'm trying to exercise a bit more. So now I'm bringing that medication level down to go, okay, like I went sometime this summer, all of a sudden I realized with my wife, I'm like, I haven't taken medication for 7 days. Oh, crap. I'm like, why do I feel okay, though?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's try bringing that down. And so we brought it down like a quarter of the dose, and I'm like, I'm still feeling okay. All right, but will I be off it entirely? I don't know, and I'm not gonna worry about that. And people who maybe I'll be on it for the rest of my life, I don't know. I don't care. But it's been a gateway for me to see the world through a new lens, to be able to see myself through a new lens and go, oh, there's hope on the other side. I don't have to sit in despair and all that. And now I can look at the emotional triggers. I can look at the spiritual things. And it's interesting, kind of, once I dealt with the physical, I'm like, well, there's not a lot of emotional ones. Well, there's not a lot of spiritual shit. That was, I wish I'd got that medication a hell of a lot earlier.
Yeah, it's like those people that finally go and get the eye laser surgery. I can see.
Well, there's a great comedian who talked about that, Brian Regan, and he talks about going for eye exam. He's like, why is good vision not at the top of every priority? You go there, he's like, I could be seeing stuff. That's totally the way it feels.
Yeah. So what do you think it was, because you talked about like, someone had suggested this to you before. You're like, oh, maybe try, and you're trying all the spiritual stuff, you're trying the other things. Was there some, was it shame in that, medication is showing a weakness, or is it your faith saying, no, if you have strong enough faith, you're not going to need this? What do you think it was that was happening that caused you to kind of delay that option?
I'm not even sure, because I look back and I know lots of people in our faith community who are on medication. My parents take it as well, which I didn't fully realize until I started on it. And they're like, oh yeah, we've been taking X for, I'm like, I feel like we should have a bigger conversation about that. And that's why I'm fully open with my kids about that as well. We're like, you might need to wait until you're adults, so you can wait until your teenage hormones will stop, raging and all that. But sorry, getting back to the first question. I think there was a lot of shame. I think there was a lot of, I got to power through this. I got to be tough enough. And the frustrating thing is I don't know why I put that on myself. Like, I've got wonderful parents. They never did the whole, you got to be tough and you got to, man up. It was never that. They were always supportive of that. And faith communities, I knew a lot of people who were on medication, and they said it was wonderful and it was helping them. I think it was just a weight I put on myself to go, well, I'm strong enough. Yeah. I should be strong enough. But it's literally like looking at a broken leg and walking on it through the pain and looking and be like, well, I should be strong enough. That shouldn't bother me. I'm like, your friggin' leg's broken.
Yeah.
Fix the damn leg. Yeah. And then realize, there's no amount of strength that's going to get through there. The chemicals in your brain are wrong. And you can be as positive as you want, but you're not fixing that. Get them fixed. And then you can see clearly to take those next steps. Like, I was saying to my wife recently, like, I still can't look, like I've never been physically abusive or anything to my family, but I know I don't want, don't want to say it, but I know I hurt them emotionally. And there's still photos of my family that I look at on the wall and I can't look at them because all I can remember is how mean I was. Or looking and be like, I remember hurting you that day. I remember saying something, my daughter who's 18 now, and I got two daughters who are 18 and 15, and my boys who are 12 and 9.
I got the same issue.
Yeah,
At 7, it's hard to figure it out sometimes.
Like my boys have never experienced that side of dad. My younger daughter knows a little bit, and my older daughter does remember things. And we've had conversations, and she's fully, forgiven me for things I said. But I still look at a lot of these photos, and I just have this shame going, man, why the hell didn't I get that? Why the hell didn't I try medication sooner? And how much better that would have been.
Well, the good thing is you can look at that picture and see that that's a different person.
Yeah, and that's
not you anymore.
Yeah, and that's the wonderful truth of getting a handle on the depression through the medication is being able to look at that now through that analytical eye. And if I didn't have the medication, it would just be like, look, you're garbage. You're garbage then. You're garbage now. And now if I say that to myself, I can go, you're not. You can. That's not who you were. You were strong enough to go to the doctor and say, I want a better life for my kids. I want a better life for my wife. I got this wonderful wife who, walked with me, but people kind of joke. They're like, oh, she's so quiet and she's so introverted. I'm like, yeah, but she's a bear when it comes to like defending her family. And she'll be like, I love you, but you need to shut up, and, like you need to figure this crap out. We're committed to this marriage, but right now this sucks. So let's, and she's just, this 5'1" 3/4. She's very strict about that height. I'm 1 3/4. Tiny person. Both my daughters and my oldest son are now all taller than her. But she's a person who just kind of, just said, I support you, I love you, but I know there's more. You can be better than this. Yeah. Right? And anyway, I could babble on forever about that, but
that's awesome. Yeah, and it's it's interesting when I talk to in my field, being in alternative health, I'll get patients in all the time that are very against using medications, or they come in and it's almost as though they're apologizing to me that they're on these medications. I'm like, no. You don't have to apologize. This isn't a, this or that, one or nothing kind of thing. It's whatever it takes to get you better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing, I'll say to patients is, most medications are designed to, correct an interim thing. Very few medications heal. So there's nothing wrong with going on a medication to get things in a position where your body can heal. Because I'm sure as soon as that you started that meds, there's like that switch, and you're like, wow, I can function.
I can start making some better choices.
Yeah. Now I can start, moving forward and, finding other things that can make me feel even better. And, not that the ultimate goal is to completely get off meds. For some people that is, because certain medications just, long-term use aren't really unhealthy.
Yeah, totally.
Others, they're quite fine to use a low dose your whole life. And, it's finding that method that fits you. And, I always try to remind patients, number one is, my goal is never to tell you what to do with your medication. My goal is to get you so balanced and healthy that you may not need your medication. But that's not my decision to make. That's yours and your physician. And, if that means you got to take it for the rest of your life to feel amazing, as long as you're feeling amazing.
Yeah. Well, it so much goes back to kind of the earlier conversation we were having about, this dichotomy world where everything's so divided. Like everyone we just leap on the extremes where it's like, oh, medication's great and therefore all medication will be good and I should only do this and no alternatives, right? Or people go, oh, only alternatives. And it's like, no, like, man, how much better as a society do we do we work if we come to the middle and we're like, let's take the best of that, let's take the best of this. Oh, having conversations with people over race things, and they're like, well, I know all these black people who are, don't have any race problems. I'm like, that sounds awesome. They should be a great encouragement to those who are. Oh, I know lots of great cops. Awesome. Let's catch the bad ones so the good ones can do their job.
Yeah.
Right. And and they don't have to worry about that. So they don't have people looking at them negatively. Like the middle is where we are. We're like, all right, let's let's take the good from over there. Let's take the good from over there. Let's get rid of the bad over here. And man, like as a society, like we're on such a like I'm a bit of an optimist. I don't know, maybe it's a medication, but whatever. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Where I look at it, I'm like, man, we can look at it as we're on such a tipping point of, all these extremes. I'm like, yeah, but we're talking about shit that needed to be talked about.
Yeah.
We're bringing that up, like, we're bringing all that stuff to the surface where people are like, oh, well, now people are upset. I'm like, people were always upset.
Yes.
And they were burying it, or the people who had a right to be upset weren't bringing it up because they're like, nobody gives a crap. I'm like, we do. Let's fix it. Let's dig into it. And someone's like, this conversation's awkward. I'm like, yes, but imagine being on the other side of it, pushing through and going, well, I don't understand you. I don't understand you. Well, I kind of understand you a little bit more now that we're clashing. Yeah. Do you get why? Oh, we actually both love humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Oh, let's work together. Yes, and that guy's racist. Yeah, let's throw him away. 'Cause, that guy hates people. I'm like, okay, we can both agree with that. Let's get rid of the crazies on either side and the 99% of the world that wants to make things better.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, it's really fascinating. I've read a book recently called Humanity. And I apologize, cannot remember the author's name right now. He's a Danish historian. And the whole purpose of the book is to clear up all these false narratives that have been taught in psychology and, just in media over the last 200 years about that humans are inherently evil. That we're born evil. We're these evil, selfish beings, and we need, leaders to, corral us and control us to make us obedient, or without it, we would just, turn into absolute chaos. Yeah, and he brings it up in the book because. Lord of the Flies was written by a, alcoholic, abusive father who taught private school boys, and he hated his job and he hated children, and this is how he viewed children.
Yeah,
I'm going to write a book about what kids are really like, and so he wrote Lord of the Flies, and we think it is like nonfiction. Because we all had to read it.
Yeah.
And so we all have this view of, this is what we're like if we don't have guidance. And it couldn't be further from the truth, right? And so the author is like, getting all the information about, why do we think that this is gospel? And he found a story of these 6 teens that wanted adventure. They lived in Tonga. They stole the local island drunk's boat and decided they were going to New Zealand. And none of them knew how to run a boat or anything. They crashed eventually on this island all by itself. It's not really a very livable place, but these 6 boys kept themselves alive for a year and a half.
Wow.
They had created their own little democracy. If there was ever any fights, they had to go to the opposite sides of the island, cool down, and then always apologize and hug when they got back. And they figured all these things out, and they were found and saved by a fisherman. And, just like this is what humanity does, and cool. So he goes through, and there's all these stories like the Stanford prison experiment. It was all faked and, manipulated and everything, and on and on and on, about in war that men would, just continually during the Civil War refill their guns, but they would never shoot. Because no one wants to kill, and
the Christmas Day and,
and
World War II, right? Where it's like,
and
when you're
then
given an opportunity for a break, and it's like, actually, we don't want to kill each other.
Yeah.
And then after, you got to go kill each other.
Yeah, because the following Christmas, they had plans and they forced them. Like, they were on them. Like, we can't let these guys get soft again. And so after World War II, they started, in the militaries, started desensitizing humans to killing. So they could, get them to actually kill and shorten these wars, I guess the idea and all this. But it was just crazy. So it just drives me crazy when we think humans aren't decent inside, because we are. And if you really believe that we are created by God and are in his image, then you have to think that we're all inherently good. That we're not coming here as these, evil beings that need to be saved. Like, we have that glory in us, and, we can use it. Now, I'm just saying that to me, being raised Mormon and all that, I've left a lot of those beliefs behind, but I still I feel that way. And I still think, the fundamentals of Christianity should feel the same way. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, like one of the underlying theologies of sin, and sin being prevalent through, Adam and Eve's first sin and so forth, and all through humanity. I always look at that as kind of there's two layers. Like, there's the theological element of sin of, we will choose things that are against the will of God. I don't want to get too much into the theology of it. I view that as being not separate from humanity, but it is a theological. It's a larger theological conversation. But when you see humanity in the nuts and bolts of life, and I love those illustrations of we don't teach people to be racist. We do teach people to be racist.
Yeah.
The opposite of what I meant. Like, when you see two kids who've never been taught about racism and that they embrace each other. I love those photos of two kids who, a black kid and a white kid wearing the same clothes, and they're like, look, we're twins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how humanity is viewing each other, right? Like we're often tempted to sin and so forth, and we will often give into that for, selfish reasons and so forth. But there are so many overwhelming examples of that humanity wants to care for one another. And, we can be tempted, tempted through sin and the devil to choose things that are selfish. But I still see that image of God, Imago Dei, which is the fancy term. You still see that thumbprint of the Creator in all of us, where you love. There's things out there that you love. I look at love itself as symbolic of, not even symbolic, that it is the personification of God's love for us, right? God loved us. You can see that throughout scriptures everywhere. And then through that, we know how to love each other. And you see that in humanity, that people who may not know anything about the Christian faith, well, they sure as heck know how to love each other, right? Yeah. And it's not because they've been taught that through a religion. It's because that is embedded in their being, right? Yeah. And then when you're taught hate, well, then that gets embedded. But luckily, I would see that it's a layer that can be peeled off, right? Man, there's a great example of a black guy who goes to KKK rallies.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
I can't remember, but he wrote a book about the whole experience.
Yeah, and he's taking like hundreds of KKK members.
Over 400 people have left the KKK thanks to him. But he worked with like the head top dragon guy or whatever, and just would hang out with him.
Yeah, and it was the simple stuff. Yeah, and exactly. He didn't argue with him. It wasn't a matter of debate. It was, I'm going to love you, and that's enough for you to go, crap. So this guy who I hate loves me and cares about me. What does that say about me? Yeah. Can I be that guy?
Yeah. And because I think I'm the superior race here. And he's showing me that he is.
Oh, yeah. Being confronted with that, we're like, oh, he is clearly a better person than me. And now that's a problem, because then I'm confronted with everything I got in front of me here, and I got to toss that away because his way seems way better. And even from a faith perspective, that's the way I want to live my faith, where people go like, that guy loves people. That guy cares about people. There must be something to what he's believing. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I love you because I know Jesus loves the heck out of you. And who am I to say otherwise?
Yeah. It's, I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. But it's, I think for myself too, and from what I've learned of people, it's you need to meet someone and know someone in that realm that you have issue with to really change your heart. And, myself, I was raised, again, very religious. We had very negative views on homosexuals, and that, well, the only reason you're homosexual is because you were, raped as a child by a man or something, or like these are the things that I was taught, and or that they're perverts or all these things to excuse this behavior, rather than it being what it is that you're born this way. And it took me, meeting gay people and being friends with them to soften my point of view. And thank God that I did, because I have 2 gay sons.
Wow.
And to, I know what it's been like for others who, were raised in that viewpoint of, like, my best friend is gay, but he was raised Mormon too. We served as missionaries for 2 years together.
Wow.
And his whole life, he was never allowed to let his mind ponder the fact that he was even gay, because that's just not an option in his belief. And so it took him till in his 40s to finally, like, I'm going to allow myself to be who I am. And I think whether it's, the KKK fellow meeting, sitting down with the black fellow, and then, myself meeting and respecting and falling in love with gay people, and, whatever it may be, when you meet people who are living and are those things that you fear or hate, you can't help but change and soften your heart once you know that, no, they're real people. They're good people.
There's a term, I think it's called sonder. I might be wrong on that, which has always fascinated me. It's the concept that we look at our lives, and when you consider the web of interconnection of, like, what's going on in my life and who I'm connected with and the things that are affecting me, and you start realizing that's everyone out there. This persecuted person here, this racist person over there. They've got this web of influences and people they're influencing, and coming to realize that, like, man, we've got all these things that are trying to change us and affect us, and looking at people as people to be cared for, people to be loved, people to be what's the word I'm looking for? Pitied, but in a positive way. Right? Compassionate, yes, exactly. To look at someone and, like, man, I don't know your story, but I know you deserve love. Carl Medeiros is a well-known Christian writer, and he's kind of advised like governments and all these different things, and sat in these big panels with world leaders and all that. And he was, I was sitting next to the head of a couple homosexual organizations, and they just straight up said to him, "What are your thoughts on homosexuality?" And he said, "Well, I'd hope they'd be the same as Jesus." And she's like, "And what is that?" He's like, "He loves you. Like, that's the only thing that should matter. That's the only thing that should come out of my mouth. That's the only thing you should understand for me as a Christian is Jesus loves you, and he loves me. And in the midst of whatever I'm doing, in the midst of your life or this other thing, like let's be honest, I don't know what's in people's hearts. I don't even know, let's be honest, the complete truth. But I've seen Jesus move in my life, and I've seen him change me. And I want you to know how much he loves you. And if there's things to work on, I trust that he's going to talk to you about that, just the way he talked to me about it. But I know my job is to love the crap out of you. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too, like, so if we go back to the beginning where you talked about, you're trying to get your mind to settle and stop that negative, harmful self-talk. And you're going through all these things. And, again, when I was a child in faith, there was this idea that, you don't need medication because you just got to pray harder. You just got to read the scriptures more, and you got to do all these other things, and that's going to be the answer. I do think the Mormon Church is moving away from that finally, but there's a lot of Mormons on medications now. And whether that's the faith itself that causes the imbalance, I don't know. But
a lot of people in faith were the ones who said to me, like, you got to take some medication.
Yeah,
you need to go check that out. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like that might be Jesus actually pointing me in that direction.
But that's what I'm saying is that we, people in faith are all about, Jesus is going to solve this for me. Well, he has by providing you with all these people in here with all this knowledge and understanding and skill set. And if you open up and you follow that influence, you're going to find those people that are going to help you.
Totally.
And they're him.
Yeah.
And if you can be humble enough to listen to him, again, I want to make it clear, I'm not a religious person anymore. I'm technically like on the line of an atheist. But I still believe that this is how it works, in that whether it's God or the universe or Jesus, that energy, that influence is there, and it's in everyone. And if we really want to benefit from Jesus and his love and that energy, we have to follow that guidance to those around us that are his hands, that really make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do that, then you can find support and you can find help and you will heal. It's always like that guy, he's like hanging from a cliff or something, and he's praying for
I totally was going to mention that. Yeah.
Why don't you tell that story?
Well, I've heard it in so many different facets. Like you're hanging from a cliff, you're on a desert island, or whatever, and the general idea is you're on a desert island, and you say, Jesus, help me, and then all of a sudden a sailboat comes along and says, hey, can I give you a lift? And he's like, no, Jesus is going to help me. And Jesus is coming, and then a big boat comes along and it's like, hey, we want to help you. No, Jesus will help me. And a helicopter comes and he says, no, I'm waiting for Jesus. And then the guy dies. Yeah. And then he goes, why didn't you help me? And Jesus is like, what are you talking about? I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. He's like, how could you not see that?
Yeah.
Right? And that is so life. Like we're waiting for, I've said this often to people, I've had friends who would, show articles that are explaining away the parting of the Red Sea and all this stuff. And maybe they can all be explained by natural consequences. But I bet you the Israelites are thankful that happened then.
Yeah.
Right? Like God is so much in the timing, and this person is brought into your life and you might be like, that doesn't seem miraculous. Yeah, well, the timing sure was awesome.
Yeah.
It's when I needed to hear that when I was away with my wife and we were both at this prayer event for our denomination, and I was just wrestling with faith but self-hatred and all this type of stuff, and I was just sitting there going, God, I don't know, I don't like you, I don't think I believe in any of this, and it was all inside. And then my wife just turns to me and she's crying. She's like, God told me this. And I'm like, could you look at her words and be like, well, she knew me and blah 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 blah. Sure, we could dismiss it that way, but she sure as hell said that at the right time. There was something in her that just went, now.
Yeah. Well, see, I look at it as we are all connected. We're all one. Whether you want to believe that's, we're all God's creation, or we're all the universe is an organism and we're just the cells in it, whatever. We are all connected, and when we quiet ourselves, you can call it the spirit, you can call it the whisperings of the universe, you can call
midi-chlorians.
Anything. It exists. Yeah. And that's why there's so many religions, is because this is real. And when we can, quiet and listen and respond to that guidance, that's when miracles happen. And, it can, strengthen any faith. It can make you feel more connected to a partner. It can make you feel more connected to others. And I think that's the thing that I think, particularly with mental health, that we all need to talk more about, is that everyone has mental health issues. Everyone. And
some are easier to deal with on a day-to-day basis and some are not.
Yeah. And you can't do it alone. And we have to talk about it. We have to reach out. We have to support others so that we can find, help and feel better. because it'll never be something you're going to figure out on your own.
No, absolutely. Like even when we go back to the kind of beginning of this conversation about music and stuff, having this afternoon or this evening, I had a meeting with our virtual Zoom meeting with our chorus and chamber chorus subcommittee. People just trying to organize seasons, going, all right, what the heck do we do for this upcoming season? Well, we can't sing. Well, I guess that's that. But one of the things I've just loved about this society, like we started it 7 years ago, and we started it as, we just want to make great classical music. And then it became something where it's like, well, we're going to continue making great music. But man, this is attracting people who are looking for a great community. And this has become that. So the conversation very much was, all right, so we can't sing. So how do we care for the people in this organization? How do we contribute? How do we help them with their mental health? How do we encourage them in the middle of this? And I just was like smiling like an idiot. I'm like, I love this. I love you guys. Yeah. Like that's the priority, right? That like we are living together. We're all connected through this. So how can we love each other and kick up each other, keep each other's brains working properly when we're all devoid as, the extroverts in us especially are really feeling that lack of connection, I would guess you're an extrovert.
I'm kind of in the middle. It depends where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
And the setting. Like, it's so funny. Like, drives Crystal a little crazy sometimes because she's like, if you're in charge, you're an extrovert.
That's totally me. Yeah.
If you're not, you're an introvert.
Yeah, totally. I'm not in the front. I'm the person just kind of sitting in the back and be like, they're like, is he going to kill someone here?
Yeah, that's what they say to me too.
Yeah. Look at all his tattoos. Look at his beard. Oh my gosh. Someone's going to die.
It's hard, but to myself, the hardest thing I experienced leaving the Mormon church, there was 1,000 reasons to leave the Mormon church, but there was only one thing that made it hard for me, and that was the community. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it was a particularly healthy community, but it was a community, and it's the only one I knew since I was born. And and part of it too, it's the ego of, it's the sunken cost fallacy.
The which?
The sunken cost fallacy. So it's this thing of, this isn't working. You're not benefiting from it. You're never going to fix this car, but you keep throwing money into it thinking, well, I've already put this much into it. Yeah. I'm going to keep doing it in the hopes that someday it'll work. Yeah. And I think there's that part of it. It's just like, frick, I know so much about this stuff, and I've experienced so much, and I've, had all these leadership positions and, done all these things, and
it's still a world I understand.
Yeah. And it's like, it makes me feel a little safe. Yeah. It makes me feel important. And am I going to give all that up? Well, I needed to for my mental health, for my, just my peace. And, but I still missed that. Mm-hmm. And that made it hard. It took me several years. And, part of it was deprogramming from the childhood brainwashing, but, there's a lot of stuff. And, initially it was, I was missing that community, and, I joined a choir. That's where we first met.
Yeah.
I joined.
Was that like right after that?
Fairly soon after that. Yeah. I did a play with Dooney Players, and I've done like 4 or 5 plays with them now. I joined the Masons.
Wow.
Did that whole thing. Wasn't for me, but
community,
we need community.
Yeah.
And without it does really, even those who are the most introverted still need at least 1 or 2 people
absolutely
in their life. Like I have, I'd say I have, a lot of good, acquaintance / friends. Because we're, I say that's where I would say we're friends. We don't do a whole lot together, but I know that, if I needed anything or we could always talk, great friends, I probably have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I know other people have like this like group of their entourage and, all these friends. I never really had that, maybe when I was younger, but still, I don't think we're great friends.
Yeah.
Kids. But we need something.
Yeah.
We can't be alone.
Absolutely. That's definitely something I'm finding in the midst of this COVID thing as well, is that it's really kind of made me look and go, okay, like my wife is obviously a great companion for each other, but she very clearly, like she's always known who she is. She's always, seemed very confident and not drawn to groups of people. She's always had one or two close friends, and even now she's got one or two just absolute, and they keep talking to each other. In the midst of this, I'm like, okay, I think I might have been filling myself with groups of people, right? And that the one or two really close friends I didn't pour enough time into. So now I'm kind of apart going, who are those one or two people, right? Like definitely, and going back to the whole mental health thing, the medicine helps that from becoming a spiral, that I can actually look at that and go, that makes me sad. What can we do to deal with that, right? And I can think that through and go, I should pour some more energy into those friendships that I know are important. Okay, let's do that. As opposed to, well, you are a piece of garbage and nobody wants to be around you, so you should jump off a cliff.
So prior to the medication, it was you weren't able to get that pause in your brain to think,
that is so
that is not logical. What can I do about this?
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was just this bombardment of self-hatred.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember just being like, would be in prayer meetings at church, and the images in my head, years ago as a younger person, I would be like, is this demonic? Like, I'd have these images of like, oh, I'm going to pick up a table and throw it out the window. And, I just hear yelling in my head. I'm like, am I schizophrenic? What's going on? And all it is just this bombardment of noise inside me and going, oh, you're a fraud. Oh, you're sitting in a prayer meeting, and, you hate yourself, and why would you be in a prayer meeting? Jesus doesn't love you. Look at what a piece of garbage you are. And it's this constant just noise of depression, right? You go, I'm sure I took on a bunch of things just to prove it to myself that, you're not trash. Like, maybe that's why I went into my music degrees. I don't know, but now I like them. I'm quite happy with the decisions that Depressed Tim made back then. Right? But I look at so much of like working on choir stuff, and I have to keep myself from getting spiraling down in that as well. Is like I look at the stuff I learned in my degrees and so forth, and going, instead of going, man, you missed a lot because you were depressed. But 5 years ago, I would have go, and that's, now you're garbage and blah, blah, blah. But now I can go, well, things are better now. Yeah. Like, I think you nailed it on the head with the phrase, hit the pause button. Yeah. I couldn't hit a pause. And the medication just allowed the new lens to be put in place, the clouds to clear for a moment for me to go, just pause. You're not that. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, that's going to move us forward. And like we talk about, like the music stuff, like that's hitting that pause button. It's dispelling some of the clouds of emotion and anger and rage, and just being like, I'm going to pour it out for a moment. Oh, well, I can't play piano for the rest of my life. So, and then, not being able to deal with the rest of my life without the medication. And then once you have that, you're like, this is great. That, like, I can hit a pause, and now that I can, I'm going to work on eating better. Like, I've cut out, I used to have like 3 Slurpees a day. I haven't had them since January. Wow. Like, to the point.
And it's been hot.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm not going to lie. Cane sugar A&W root beer, super good.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but it's like, but being able to hit that pause button as well. And my wife had said, have you considered, checking into food allergies? And before I'd been like, no, because I'm strong.
Yeah.
And, finding out, oh, I should never eat corn again. Who would have thought that corn would toss me on the toilet for hours on end?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they throw that in everything now.
Yeah. And cola. I'm allergic to the cola bean.
Whoa.
Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But those sort of things, being able to hit that pause, being able to deal with that, get that figured out, hopefully get some more fitness figured out. I know I've got ways to go here, but
we're comparing bellies right now.
That's right. Womp womp.
Where's that one on this?
Oh, that's a pretty nice one.
I've got the trombone in here somewhere. No.
There it is. Yeah. That was ridiculous and awesome. I need one of those.
So one thing I've asked everyone in these interviews is, what are some self-care stuff that you do to help you manage your mental health?
So believe it or not, music isn't really one of them. Gardening. Cool. I remember reading something years ago about grounding the human body. And I'd always loved gardening, and I always specifically loved gardening in my bare feet. Mm-hmm. And like sitting on the ground, and my wife would be like, "You're getting so dirty." I'm like, "But it's great." Like, not just the dirt, but like just sitting on the ground with my bare feet on the ground. And I ended up reading this thing where it just talks about like that the human body with its electrical systems needs to be grounded. Yeah. At various times I'm like, that totally makes sense to me because I feel so good, when I'm sitting just yanking weeds out, and I'm sure I can get some rage out there. Yeah. Like that's a huge thing for me is gardening. I'm trying to actually address the fact that like all my music tends to be corporate choir, and I'm having to go, okay, I'm sure there'd be something healthy for me to do some music that's just me.
Yeah, I want you to make some EDM or something like that.
Thank you for saying that. That's 100% on my radar. Like,
you'd be awesome at that.
I totally want to do EDM stuff.
Yeah,
like
EDM or a DJ, like mixing stuff. I could see you up there with the big beard and the hair out to here, and everyone would be just like, this guy's fucking awesome.
Believe it or not, that's actually what I've been interested in doing a PhD on, combining EDM and live choral music with like crazy stereo and live effects that are mapped specifically to like frequencies and amplitudes. So you've got, like fire spraying out at specific moments but it responds to what the actual sound of the moment is. It's not pre-programmed. Mm-hmm. So I've got this nerdy, crazy concept to combine all of that EDM and choir and all this stuff together.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really think that's part of it. It's passion is one of the best, passion and creativity is one of the best cures for depression.
Yeah. And being able to hit that pause to be able to pursue that and being able to get excited about that stuff again, right? Like, man, I wasn't excited. Like, my degrees and stuff, like they were fun. I enjoyed them, but there's definitely, a lot of lost passion in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. But, I could tell the story of, my master's degree, how doors just were thrown open. It was exciting to go through there. But in the midst of it, not being able to fully enjoy it the way I could have, right? And now I can dispel some of those clouds and go, oh, I'm really excited for this EDM and choir stuff. Like I got plans. I literally am looking at it going, maybe I'll tackle this one when I'm 70. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that one when I'm 80. And part of me goes, you're too old. And I'm like, shut up. That's ridiculous. I'm like, no way. I want to be a fit 70-year-old with a massive white beard doing EDM music live. That would be killer.
That's awesome. I love it.
Be like, that guy is insane. And he looks like he could literally snap me in two. Yeah. But music's awesome.
Yeah. There you go. It's we, especially when, your mind is sending you these thoughts, you got to have something that you're excited about, something to move forward with.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to that shit.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like I look at my yard and I try to remind myself, I'm like, every day I want to do something that's soul filling. And the simplest start for me is I'm going to pour some mulch on that flower bed.
Yeah.
Right?
And you have your front yard. I haven't seen your backyard, but your front yard is beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks.
It's on a corner a lot, and you got some beautiful plants out there.
Yeah. And that's the thing where I look at it, I'm like even for today, I was like, oh, I missed to do I didn't manage to do my gardening because I'm come here chat with Jared here. Like, that's okay though. But I put on my sprinkler before I went because seriously, as tiny a thing is, that was my brain going, oh, those plants are going to look great. Like, it's going to be water on them, and tomorrow they're going to look awesome. Oh, it's going to be great.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, good. So what advice would you give to people who are struggling, maybe there's someone out there listening and, they're a devout Christian, they're struggling with some of these ideas, they're having a very similar experience as you. Yeah. What advice would you give to them today?
It's a broken leg. Like, assume it's a broken leg. Don't start with the don't start with the high things. Oh, it might be, it's spiritual, it's emotional. Like, let's look at the physical first. Like, the physical opens those doors to see the rest of it. Mm-hmm. You know, your brain is a broken leg. You fix the broken leg, then you can walk, then you can run, and like the path after that gets a million times easier. You know, I got friends who they've gone on it and then they've gone off of it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to be okay." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, and I'm not pushing you to be on medication, but like when you step back from it, you need to have supports and all that type of stuff too. Like, I got my wife who's this great support, and she's watching me.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, "You're kind of becoming a shithead again." You know? Like, whoa, okay. Right. But, yeah, sorry, the question, you know, that advice is, it's view it for what it is. It is a broken part that needs fixing by medicine, whether it is medication or alternative medicines or whatever, but take a step to do that. And a huge thing that we talked about that totally ties in, don't walk it alone.
Yeah.
Like, ask the people who know you and be like, "Am I depressed?" Like seriously, as silly as the question that is, would you call me a person who's depressed? Like, good friends would be like, "Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed this for a while, and you should get some help."
Yeah. There's a version of you which is better than this. And we want to help you get there. And if you got friends who aren't going to help you get them, get rid of those friends.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and if you'd, you know, the whole thing is the more we talk about this, then it's normalized, and it's like, you know, like what happened if when your parents first got on medication, they'd be like, "Hey, Tim, we just want to let you know, we're struggling with this. We got medication. We're feeling better." And then you would have been like, "Hey, I've got the same genetics as them. We're very similar.
Yeah.
Maybe I would feel better."
Totally. Like, I don't think my parents ever tried to hide what they were taking. I think it was probably just part of that culture of like, we're just not going to mention it because there's no reason to mention it. I'm like, no, like, my kids know it. They fully are aware. Like, I've gone these, beard runs, which, me and Jared met up on. And I've tried to live as publicly as I can with it to normalize it for other people. Because for a lot of other people, it is hard to talk about. I'm like, great, I can be obnoxious publicly, and I will obnoxiously be like, "Hey, everyone, I'm depressed. Are you depressed? This is how I'm dealing with it. Yeah. You should talk about it. Oh, it's Natural Depression Day. Here's what I'm dealing with."
Yeah.
Right? Just so people can be like, "Okay, I'm depressed too." Like, just to crack open that door a little bit. Like, live it in community. Tell your friends, tell your family. And don't, it's just too many people where it ends because nobody knew what they were dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just the worst.
Yeah. It's like, Kira, my half-daughter, there's this young guy that she was always, had this crush on and everything. He was always with another girl. And I guess they had broken up, and they met up at the bar, and, he's like, "Hey, when you get," because she's leaving for the cabin the next day. When you get back, we should hang out, we should chat and everything. And she's all excited, and he killed himself that night.
Oh my goodness.
So in her mind, she's always like, "Oh, I could have done more. I could have," and I'm like, "Wow. Sweetheart, there's nothing you could have done." No. And, there's so many little warning things that are going on that, people just ignored or didn't see because he's so young. And it's just like, well, he should be fine. He's a young guy. He's okay. He's resilient, all these things. And, we all want to save everyone, but, if we don't talk about it, if we're not, hey, when we see, because we can see when someone's having a hard time or down, they may not want to talk about it right now. But if you can point out, "Hey, you look like you're struggling. Can I help?" And the one thing that when people are struggling is we can't tell them how to fix themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
All we can do is say, "I love you. I'm here when you're ready."
Totally.
And that is a better, reach out than, like I always give the analogy of quicksand. You see a friend stuck in quicksand, and those that are like stuck on sympathy want to jump in with them and experience with it and say, "I know what you're dealing with, all this, because I'm experiencing it too." And they get all caught up in it. and they can't be someone there that can support and lift them up. Where empathy is walking up with a stick and saying, when you're ready, grab it and I'll pull you out. And, we never want to tell someone, I know exactly what you're feeling. This is what you need to do. And this is how you solve it. It's, I don't know what you're going through because you're different than me. But if you ever want to know what I've done, or, if you need some help and someone to talk to, I'm here for you.
Yeah. There was a young guy, he came up to me and he said, my mom told me I should talk to you, and because you talk about depression all the time. I'm like, all right. And he's like, so last night I took a bunch of pills, tried to kill myself, ended up in the hospital. And I was just kind of like, in my brain, I'm like, well, I'm not a counselor, so I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. I'm like, but I just talked to him about how much I knew his family loved him and how I cared for him, and I'm like, just call me anytime. And I'm pretty sure he's definitely done something, because his outlook and his mindset's totally different, right? And sometimes it's just that, to be like, anytime, man, like, and that's not an empty promise. Like, hey, anybody who's listening, go to Foothills Philharmonic or Oak Oaks Lions Church and find me and message me and be like, hey, I'm depressed. I'm like, awesome. Well, not awesome, but let's go. Let's, talk to me about it.
Yeah.
And tell me everything.
Especially for a young guy like that, to know that, here's a functioning adult that struggles with depression and has found tools to help him, and he's doing okay. There's hope for me.
Yeah. It's not perfect, but that's definitely, that is not the end. That is not the end of your story. That is, that is a bump along the road, and then let's walk through it. Let's deal with it, and let's get you back on the road to good things.
That's awesome. Let's end on that.
Sounds good.
I like it. Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for asking me, man. It was really cool.
No, when I was kind of going through, starting this, I'm like, Tim is fascinating. I have to talk to Tim.
Thanks. I never would put that adjective on me.
No, for sure. It's
one of those guys who's just got that constant imposter syndrome. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in life. Someone's going to figure that out. I'm like, nobody knows what they're doing. It's
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I always said, when I was a missionary, I said, one missionary came up to me and he's like, why am I here? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not this spiritual person. I can't help these people. And I'm like, dude, neither am I. You don't want to know what my motto is? He's like, what? I said, fake it till you make it.
That is so just life. In every job. My wife and I always say, everything is chaos.
Yes.
Like, even the most finely tuned businesses around the world, there's always just this underlying chaos that is just bubbling. And they're like, holy crap, are we going to keep this crap together? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why we all have to be a little more compassionate and understanding with each other, because there is no perfect way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one's figured it out. Well, unless you want to say one person did.
Yeah. Jesus.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Baby Jesus in your little baby Jesus manger.
That is like one of my favorite scenes ever.
Oh, sweet little baby Jesus.
Is that how you pray?
What? Yeah, totally. Begin with bow to Ricky Bobby.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Tim. Now, thanks, what's your Instagram?
Oh, I think it's Tim Likes Music.
That's what I believe it is.
Yeah, okay.
Just wanted to confirm.
Totally.
Yeah. So if you want to get a hold of Tim, or you want to join his choir, or you want to, just follow an interesting person, Tim Likes Music on Instagram. Excellent. All right. Thanks, everyone. And you're not alone. And there's always someone out there that is also experiencing it. And when you start talking to people about it, you'll be amazed that you're not alone.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Wasn't that wonderful speaking with Tim? What an amazing guy. I'm very honest when I say I admire him and I enjoy his company and think he's a fantastic, interesting individual. As far as the conversation went, it's interesting how I was able to kind of slide back into that history of, organized religion and remember, all those things and be able to talk about them with him. I think it's important that not just in the mental health field, but in politics, in, social justice, all these aspects of our lives, it's important that we can communicate with everyone, even when their beliefs and ideas don't agree with ours. Like, I have a real difficulty with organized religion now and faith in general. But I know that Tim isn't just his beliefs. He is, a good man, and he's a good person because he knows it's right, not because of his faith. And I think there's other people that, use faith as this blanket to make themselves feel as though they're good people and doing the right things, but don't act in the, guidelines and teachings of their faith. It's more something, just an excuse to be able to continue to, behave poorly and say nasty things because, well, I believe this, so I'm a good person. Tim is not that person. Tim is a great example of just a human being in general. If you want to say he's a good example of a Christian too, he is definitely that. But more importantly, he's just a good human being. And when we go through the experience of this interview, it reminded me a lot of the 5 elements and, those personality types within it. It's interesting. We've seen quite a variety already in just the first 3 podcasts that we've had. And particularly, with Tim, we're getting into, seeing another, like back to back, we've had metal people. Tim likes, order, and he likes patterns. Think about it, like music and religion. These are all things that have a particular pattern, a beauty to them, have regularity and pomp, and all of this that makes people feel comfortable. And within the metal element, it's really important for them to have that regularity, to have that pattern to fall back onto, to feel safe and comfortable. The other interesting thing about metal is, they are often drawn to religion. The archetype is known as the artist or the alchemist. And this is someone that is searching for truth and searching for the answers to life, the universe, and everything. It's not 42, but they're looking for this guidance and those patterns that make them feel safe and to answer those questions of the universe that they have. And he fits that pattern very well. And, even with his personality fits in that, metal people aren't, great extroverts. They're not the people that are going to jump up and want to, be the center of attention at a party or want to be the head of the group. They're happy to serve and they're happy to carry out, their role, but they're predominantly going to be the wallflower. And, there's many times Tim fits that profile. He's, within that group project, he's the one that's going to find the truth, find the answers, and, get it to the group and support the group. But he doesn't want to be the one that's up front. But he's going to show up and get the work done. And that's the metal element. They do often prefer to work on their own. I think that's interesting where from his setting, being the conductor, he feels safe having control, having everyone, listening to him. And that's when he feels comfortable being in front of groups, is when he's in charge. When he's not, he has to retreat a bit to find comfort, and he's at the back of the room. And that's totally fine because that fits the personality. It fits the metal element. Emotionally, the emotion they have the hardest time with is sadness, grief, and loss. Guilt. Abandonment is the great hurt. So when they feel they're abandoned by either their God or their parents, a spouse, someone, that is the great hurt. That's the thing that sets them off and causes the most pain. And, I think for Tim, as we went through the discussion with him, his great hurt was, suffering through his mental health and this negative self-talk. And, he didn't touch on it, but, and again, this is me just extrapolating and kind of guessing on, our discussion. I thought about it later. We didn't have time to talk about it. But there's this concern that, when you don't get those answers from your God, from, his belief, that he may have felt abandoned at times by his God. And he's not getting the answers. He's not getting the help and support he needs. But in time, he realized that, no, I'm not abandoned. There are other people out there serving in that place of my God that can support and help me. And that's why he went to a doctor, and that's why he, continually gets support and guidance from his wife when he's getting out of balance. And by getting involved in communities and supporting others, he finds that balance in service and gratitude and reaching out and letting go. Fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed it. Every time I speak with someone and we share these things, I further understand the 5 elements, our emotions, and our mental health. If you want to learn more about your emotions, the 5 elements, and particularly the 5 elements of letting go, you can find out more information on my course, The 5 Elements of Letting Go, at jaredmccallum.thinkific.com. If you want to learn more about me in general, you can go to my website at jaredmccallum.com. And all the information will be in the notes for the podcast or in the notes for this video. And we're getting amazing feedback from the course for the past 10 years that we've been teaching it in person. This is the first time this year that the course is available online. I've had literally about 1,000 people take this course over the last decade, and this is the first time it's been available globally and outside of Okotoks. So I'm excited to share it and people to apply the techniques and tools and learn more about themselves and their emotions. So if you want to learn more, click the links below, check out the course. There's some free parts that you can listen and watch before you commit to the whole course. And there's even more information on our website and on our YouTube channel. Anyway, have a great day, everyone. I just really enjoy these experiences, chatting with people and learning more about them and their experiences in life teaches me so much more and puts me in a greater position to help you and to coach you and to heal you and to educate you on your mental health. Thank you so much. Peace. Love you all. Have a good day.